So hello and welcome to our latest installment of Ask Me Anything. I am Scott English, Executive Director of the American Philatelic Society. Joining me are two people who will help us understand StampStore and HipStamp a bit better. First, Carol Hoffman, Director of APS Sales, and Anna Taylor, General Manager of HipStamp. For those watching the presentation live, your microphone and camera are disabled during the presentation. To engage fellow attendees, please make comments in the chat section. If you have a question, please use the Q&A box and we'll get to those questions at the end of the presentation. If you're watching a recording of this presentation, please feel free to ask questions in the comments section. This program is provided thanks to this APS member support. If you're not already a member of the American Philatelic Society or would like more information about our services, please visit our website at stamps.org. We've received questions in advance, and to help address one of those frequently asked questions to better understand how to use HipStamp, we've asked Anna to present some information that you will hopefully find helpful. After Anna's presentation, we'll start getting into the Q&A, but please help me welcome Anna to the APS family.
Thanks, Scott. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can provide some visuals as we're talking through how to buy on HipStamp, specifically from the APS Stamp Store. So here we go. All right, that's loaded up. So recently, HipStamp and APS Stamp Store have decided to partner, specifically listing their material on our site. In just the past 7 years, HipStamp has been able to become one of the leading marketplaces for stamp collecting and purchasing internationally and across the world. We have over 1,200 sellers, 6.5 million listings, and people are trading millions of dollars in stamps every month on our site. We are super excited to have APS with us now. They bring over 230,000 listings on our platform, and we hope to teach you more about how to explore them with us. All right, so I kind of wanted to start just by showing you guys how to find the APS Stamp Store. I know there's a lot of sellers on HIP, but it is one of the larger ones, so it's at the very top of our stamp directory of sellers. So to do this, on the HipStamp homepage, you click on this Stores button, and that brings you over here. And if you just click where the APS logo is, you should be able to enter their store and purchase and explore what they have to offer. From there, there's a couple different things you can search and different ways you can find the stamps that you're wanting to add to your collection. In reviewing some of the questions that Scott gathered, one of the questions that people had was how to search by seller ID. This is an exclusive benefit only within the APS Stamp Store. You cannot do this on any other seller on HIP. But if you are within APS Stamp Store from the store directory, you can put a seller ID up here in the search bar and press enter, and you will find all the listings from that specific seller within the APS Stamp Store. That way you can purchase stamps from that particular dealer or collector that you have gotten used to and comfortable with the material they have to offer. The other primary way that we recommend searching for stamps from within APS Stamp Store is by country and catalog number. So once you're within their store, you're going to go to that search bar at the top and put the country first and then the catalog number next. So for example, let's search for United States 240 through 245 in the APS Stamp Store. You can do multiple catalog numbers at once as long as it's from the same country by just putting US and then the number sign and 240-245. So for example, when we do that with APS Stamp Store, you'll see a variety of listings show up. The neat part about after you do this is that you can click on a category, country category over here on the left. So for instance, United States. And once you do that, a bunch of different filters will appear for you to refine that search and get more of what you're looking to purchase. So for example, after you hit United States, you'll get options to sort or filter your search by stamp format, so singles, blocks, errors, etc. Condition, mint, unused, used, FDC, certificate. You can search by centering and certificate grade, even if you're more partial to having a graded certificate. And then you can even do year of issue. So Even if a seller doesn't have the year of issue in the listing title or description, our database knows based on the catalog number when it was issued. So if you wanted to search specifically for stamps in the United States issued between 1950 and 1952, you could put that in this search bar right here, press enter, and that'll filter your results. And then of course, an important part is price. So we do have that filter as well. And then if there's anything else that you're particularly interested in, new listings listed today, listed this week, if there's a category you're reviewing frequently, that can be really useful. So I really encourage all of you guys to explore these filters that are going to appear. I put them all together for the sake of this presentation. They will appear on the left-hand side of your screen when searching within APS StampStore, but you have to choose a category first to get these to show up. All right. Another common question we've had is how can you get a cert from APS when you're checking out from their store? This is another exclusive benefit to the APS StampStore. It's not offered with any of our other sellers. To use this benefit, when you're checking out, if there is a stamp over $50, it has to be listed at over $50. If it's listed at over $50, you can click this button at checkout where the blue arrow is pointing to say request Apex certification. It will add an additional $30 to your bill, but then that automatically gets that cert for you upon checkout. It makes that process really seamless and easy. Move on. The next thing I wanted to cover was, what if you're looking for a particular item, either on HipStamp or from the APS StampStore, and you're just not finding it? We have a feature called the My Want List, where you can input a country, catalog number, condition, stamp format. You actually don't even have to figure or fill all of this out if you don't want to. You can just do country, catalog number, but you can fill this information out, hit save, and then what this does is it creates a list of the stamps you're looking for within your HipStamp account. And if APS StampStore or another seller lists it, it will automatically email you and automatically show up in your My Want list. You can click shop now and it'll show the options that we have. This is particularly helpful if you're just not seeing quite what you're looking for and you're hoping that somebody's going to list it soon. Another feature about this is if you're wanting to add a number of items to your want list, you can hit country and then catalog number and fill this out and hit save and similar. And instead of having to refill all this information out, you can just change the particular feature you wanted. So whether it's, the catalog number or the format, et cetera, it makes that process really quick. So to show you what that looks like is over here. You would have, this would be an example of my want list you could have. And once an item shows up for sale, it'll be over here and you can hit shop now and find it right away. So, and that's particularly also helpful if you have a seller who maybe let you know that they've submitted some items to APS or they're planning to, and you want to be notified as soon as it appears in the APS StampStore. Another exciting feature we have that we've executed in our partnership with the APS is that we now show APS badges on all listings from APS sellers. So it's important to note this is not just within the APS StampStore. This is in all general searches that you do on HIP. If you want to make sure that the dealer is an APS member, just look out for this badge. It'll appear on the bottom right of any listing or in the store header of any store so that you can review it and just kind of know that you're with kindred spirits. All right. And while the APS StampStore does not do offers, that is something that is available on listings across the platform. I know we've had a few questions about that, so I did want to make sure we address that too. If a seller does offer that, you'll see it on the listing right here on Make an Offer. And it is my understanding that question with Carol maybe about price or anything like that, you can also click this questions tab on the right that is on every APS StampStore listing. And then last but not least, I just wanted to let you guys know that we do have a no reserve auction event that happens every Wednesday here at HipStamp, and it starts at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And there's also a number of other HipStamp auctions that you can explore by clicking on the events tab, auction events tab in the upper right corner of any HipStamp page. And last but not least, we got a number of questions as well about how to value your stamps or your collection. While there's a number of ways you can do this, there is one feature that HipStamp offers to help you with this, and it's called a Hip Values subscription. This allows you, when you are searching an item, you can see previous prices that it's sold for on our platform. That can be really helpful if you're trying to compare a comparable item that you may have in your collection and send it to APS to be sold, but you're not sure how to price it. This data can be really helpful for when you send your items to APS StampStore for them to resell. And if you have any more questions about this, there's a lot more information on hip values at the footer of any HipStamp page. It's just on the very bottom. Just click hip values and it'll tell you more about it. All right, that's the end of my presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think that you might be muted. I'm sorry, Scott.
Oh, there I am. Sorry about that. So I wanted to go through the questions. We categorized them just so we could talk a little bit about some of the more commonly asked questions. One of the frequently asked questions, Carol, was what certification, how to get an expertising certificate looks like now versus when it was on our platform. And so I want to go through a little bit about certification of stamps, if that's okay. So the first question was, how has the expertising protocol changed since we migrated to HipStamp? And, you know, for instance, if the stamp is found to not be described as not as described or not genuine.
Really, it hasn't changed, but if it's not as described or not genuine, we offer a money back guarantee if you use Apex. And what happens is it takes anywhere from 30 to 90 days to have the item certified. Once we get the results back, we will email you with the findings, and you choose the stamp if you want the stamp, or if you want to reject the stamp. Then if you choose to keep the stamp, we mail it to you. You still have 30 days to decide if you want it. If you don't want it, you contact us and we will do a full refund of the purchase price and the $30 certification fee.
So just to clarify that, because one of the questions we got was that we don't refund the fee for the certificate if the stamp is found not to be genuine. Please talk through that just for a minute.
If the stamp isn't found to be genuine, we do offer the certification fee back.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that people understood that, because one member did say, hey, by the way, you don't refund your certificate fee versus others that do. And I wanted to make sure that we were clear on that so that folks watching tonight and whoever's watching this video later understands that.
No, if it's found to be altered in any way, not genuine, the cert fee is refunded as well as the full purchase price.
Okay. So thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that, Carol. So we've talked through the certification process and how to get an expertising certificate. Carol, one of the other more commonly asked questions was about shipping. I'll start with one of the friendlier questions. Why are your shipping charges so high? Most dealers only charge $1 or $2. I saw one of your listings that I was going to buy, but it was only a couple of dollars. So $5 for shipping made no sense to me, and I had to pass on buying it.
Okay. Previously, on every StampStore order before going to HipStamp, we lost money on every mailing. So when moving to HipStamp, we tried to align the postage costs more with real-time postage, because since we have around 230 items to manage that are members, we want to make sure that we protect the product and ensure delivery to the buyer. So now the packages include, all packages include tracking and their sent package rate. And the postage is something that, since we got the HipStamp badging in place, we are going to work on some member promotions, and we're going to look at the postage for smaller orders. But as our postage now is $5, that's for the first 10 items, no matter what the cost of the stamp is. And then after that, if you order 11 items, it goes up another $1. But our main goal is to protect the product that we're selling and to make sure it gets to the buyer safely. And we know that, you know, some adjustments will be necessary as we move forward. And we're going to work on that since we have member batching in place.
So, Carol, just to step back for a second, there are two different issues here then, and I think we want to maybe clarify a little bit more. First was the idea that prior to, even prior to moving to HipStamp, and there was an issue we identified in terms of shipping cost where the amount of money collected for shipping versus the cost of postage that we were using to ship items out didn't align. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Before we moved to HipStamp, even for one single item, it was $2.95, and it didn't align up with what postage charges were at that time. So it wasn't just because we moved to HipStamp that the postage went up. It was because every 6 months, the USPS ups the postage prices, and so we knew we had to make an adjustment.
So to add to that, folks, I presented to the board last year in the annual budget an identification that the board had set a flat rate policy for shipping years ago, which was never revisited. And one of the things that we identified going through the budget process last year was that there was a delta between the amount of money collected for postage and the amount shipping. And so what came out of that was the reality that there was a flat rate shipping cost set by the board. The proposal in front of the board and that was in the budget last year basically stated, look, we realize that the Postal Service, one, has become more aggressive about adjusting their prices for shipping, but two, that we need to be able to collect real costs, actual costs for shipping of items that we're shipping out. And so the board agreed to that change. And I mean, that was costing the program probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about $40,000 to $45,000. That's one thing. The second thing, though, is when we moved to HipStamp, Carol, if I recall correctly, one of the discussions we had to come up with is coming up with a standardized way to ship so we could calculate it fairly for everyone who was participating. And I know for folks internationally that are watching this as well, they're paying much higher than $5. Can we talk a little bit more about the procedures we use, one, to ship domestically, and then second, how we do it internationally?
Okay, to ship domestically, any order up to $200 is sent with just regular USPS tracking. Anything over 200 is sent with signature confirmation, and they're both sent package rate. And for international, we send them with tracking, and depending on the amount of the order, we will register the package to ensure that it arrives safely, and that we have a way to track it.
So with international, I think one of the challenges we keep coming across is the idea that we've got to ship through customs. We've got to do our declaration forms, and those do certainly add cost because there are fees associated with doing those things. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Every international order, we have to do a customs form, no matter what the value of the package is.
So a response question came in that says, shipping charges for APS purchases are material higher than from other sellers. That implies the APS's costs are also higher. If there's no profit on shipping for the APS, assuming no profit, what is the APS doing to reduce cost and charge for shipping domestically?
We're going to try to do some promotions for APS members now that we have the badging in place. And we are going to take a look at if we can find, any. We're still going to use USPS, but see if there's any way we can reduce the price a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we are exploring different options of things that we can do.
So Carol, let's just bottom line this. There's a couple of different things that we do that many other sellers may not do. One of them is tracking. Please talk through what does USPS do tracking for free?
It was free. They are going to start charging for the tracking.
So the additional shipping cost is for
The
tracking,
packaging.
the packaging.
And now we're going to have to pay more for tracking because they discontinued the one tracking label, and there's going to be a charge to receive that label to be able to track packages.
And so one of the things you just said you were working on was looking at different ways to ship so that for different items, you can see if we can come up with a lower cost way of shipping items to purchasers.
Yes. We're trying to work on something to get something in place and see if it's going to be feasible for us to use. Because our main goal is we want our sellers to feel safe that when we're shipping their product that it's going to arrive at the buyer undamaged and that we can see where it's at all times. That's why we like to use the tracking.
Okay, so moving on, I'm going to dive a little bit more into the shipping. Boy, this is a really popular topic. I think the question keeps coming up is so other sellers, we're being compared against other sellers. I'm not really sure that's a fair comparison given that we're shipping for other people. The question is, so we have to maintain quality of shipping because we are shipping other people's items. We have to use a more durable product when we're shipping that item out versus maybe just using a plain envelope or a manila envelope because of the damage. And then the additional shipping costs that go with that because of the weight of the packaging. All right. So moving on, one of the other items that gets talked about a lot, Carol, is the APS member discount. So it's a very that's a fairly common question that I get from a lot of different individuals. Can you explain a little bit about what the member discount looked like when we were selling on our site?
When we were selling on our site, the member discount was non-members were charged 10% more than APS members, and they were charged an additional postage fee when they ordered. We are going to try, we are going to try to work on something since we have the member badging in place now to offer different promotions for APS members. Some of the things we did in the past, it was shipping, but we're going to try to do some different things like I'm going to work with Anna and we're going to try to get some things in place now that we have the member badging to give the members a discount or some other kind of promotion.
So let me step back. When I bought on the old stamp store, I'd go in and I'd be logged in and I'd go and look at an item and it would say sell for, $5 is what it was listed for. And then I, as a member, would get a discount of say 50 cents. So it would be $4.50 to ship to me. So what you're telling me is that $5 was not the asking price. That price that was posted was the premium price. And then it was automatically calculated down to what we would call the seller price, because that's ultimately who sets the pricing for this. We don't.
Yes. So everybody was seeing the non-discounted price. If you were a member, it would go down 10%. But if you're a non-member, they would be charged 10%.
So the price would remain the
Difference,
same. It
yes.
would just be
It was the
calculated
same.
lower.
Yes, lower
Okay.
for members. And non-members paid more in postage too.
And so one of the things that I know that you and Anna have been discussing is the idea of looking at different promotions for APS members, ways that we can enhance the membership value. Getting the member badging in place was, I think, critical to getting that done. And now that we've moved from that, we can move on to start looking at different ways to promote the membership benefit for people on HipStamp. And I'm sure HipStamp will be more than happy to work with us on finding some new and exciting ways to make that happen. I'm holding you to that, Anna.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've had a couple good calls, Carol and I, about different ways we could do this, different promotions, or potentially even other benefits such as our concierge services. I actually think we have a promotion coming up in May exclusively for APS members for a week. And more information about that is going out in the APS magazine soon. But offering even more than just discounts, just particular services or benefits that HipStamp provides to members exclusively of the APS.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're excited about it.
So Anna, here's a question I think that is aimed at both you and Carol. How can APS StampStore sellers participate in the frequent HipStamp sales? I was very pleased to see one of my items promoted in the more items from APS StampStore listings. How are those items selected for that list? Is there any way that I can get more of my items to show up there? There are a couple of other seller questions here, but let me stop there and let you all answer that.
Carol, do you want to take it or do you want me to?
You can go ahead and then I
Okay.
can add stuff in.
Yeah, so with those newsletters that we send out specifically from the APS, when we feature items, that is more particularly just geared around what the specific email is about. So if it's about, GB listings, if you have GB material, it's much more likely to be featured there, of course. And it's just particularly what we are marketing for the APS at that time. The listings that best match that are going to be selected for those promotional emails. That said, we can definitely work with the APS to, promote specific sales or specific categories within the APS stamp store. That's definitely something we have the capacity to do and we could do more of in the future. It would just be, a partnership between both of us. And if that's some feedback that we're hearing from you guys that you would like to see more of, then we can absolutely make that happen.
Okay. So I've got a couple of other seller questions here I want to go ahead and throw in. As a seller, is there a way I can offer a 20% discount holiday sale on my items for the weekend so that they show up in the HipStamp promotional screens or when people are searching, show only items for sale? He references Carol back to there being an adjust prices process on the APS website, but that won't flag those items as on sale. How can a seller maybe do a temporary sale on their stamps or make some adjustments so that maybe they can get some attention?
The only way it might be possible would be they would have to reduce their pricing 20%. And I think you can search by recently reduced. And that would show them that they were recently discounted. But then they would have to up the price. They can go into my APS and adjust the price at any time. Anna, is there a way that just one seller could do it through their seller ID?
I think to be, fully transparent there, it would require that we work specifically with the APS team to do so. And so it may be something that we need to figure out logistically how that would work. We can certainly reduce specific items from the APS stamp store based on listing ID. So for instance, if we're able to search for all items by a specific seller ID within the APS stamp store, we can definitely reduce all of those ones that we see and put them with the the slash where it says the reduced price, and it would show up as a reduced item and on sale for a particular period of time. That said, you guys are managing 230,000 listings, so it would be a bit of a labor, but I think if that's something that's a priority to APS sellers, we could potentially look into how to streamlining that process. I'm sure we have a lot of teams who work with our database. And I'm sure we could talk to those engineers on our side and see how that might be able to be. We might be able to do that in bulk. So it might be a little bit of a quicker process. And like Carol said, you can certainly reduce them, but I understand what you're looking for, or what this questioner is looking for, is to have it specifically show the slash through and the on sale, because that does catch buyers' eyes. I think to do that, we would just have to figure out logistically what would make sense, just because there are so many listings being consigned from, a number of different sellers. So that's not to say we can't ever do that. I think it's just something we'd have to figure out logistically how to do it.
Okay. I got a question that was, to what extent can UK members participate in StampStore? Carol, I know that you've reflected that we have a lot of international purchases since we've moved to HipStamp. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, we can. Any international member can participate in buying off our store as well as selling. And the same as far as selling, all they would have to do is submit their items to us. We handle everything and manage the items. So it works the same as a domestic seller.
And I also wanted to add on to that, on HipStamp, there are capabilities in place for anybody to check out. That's why we use PayPal for checkout, because it's an international platform. So it makes it easier versus some other sites to have an international buyer should be able to check out from anywhere from within the APS stamp store with no issue. And if you're ever curious about whether a seller does or does not allow you to check out, there's a ships to filter as well. I didn't mention it earlier, but you can make sure that the item will be shipped to your said country.
I've had some great suggestions about shipping, Carol, that I will share with you after the event. We don't need to get into investigating that into real time. But just to make sure that to acknowledge to the audience anyway that we see these comments, and we'll investigate those a little bit more. So we appreciate that. So let's get into, Carol, catalog value. One of the things that keeps getting discussed is, searching by Scott catalog number, and in the description, navigating HipStamp. So the questions I often get are, can I search by Scott catalog number? Why can't I search by Scott catalog number? And, I'm frustrated by the degree to which I search for something and can't necessarily find it.
You can search by the Scott catalog number, and the Scott catalog numbers aren't in the title, but the Scott catalog value is not in the title, but the Scott catalog number is in. Like Anna showed, if you go to the main search bar up at the top and put in the catalog number, you can search that way. Or if you pick a filter, you can narrow your search down. If you pick out a filter on the left-hand side, you can narrow it down. And like she showed, you can do the year and different other filters, like if it's back of the book or postal history or things like that.
To add on to that, we also have a team of people that can help you guys with this if you're ever having difficulty with particular search issues. And there's also a very comprehensive article on HipStamp searching on the support website. If anybody wants to email me after this call, I can direct you to that article and also to our team that can help you find specific items or go into more detail about this if needed. My email is anna@hipstamp.com, just my name, if that's helpful for you guys.
So while we're talking about navigating, there's some questions about the keyword search on StampStore lots that are not as broad as the keyword search on the rest of HipStamp. Should they be the same?
So I think Carol might be able to shed more light on this, but something I did want to highlight is that in the APS StampStore, all of the listings are country and catalog number, at least from what I've seen. And that is generally the way that most people search on our platform, which is why that's recommended when you are making a listing. And then if you're searching for a particular keyword, such as like first day cover or something like that, we would recommend using the filters to then search from there. And if you don't have a particular catalog number that you're looking for, you can browse within a category and then use those filters. So if you just want to look at topical stamps and then use those filters from there. One thing I did connect with Carol on today was that we need to apply topics to the topical stamps from within the APS store. And that should really make that a lot easier when you're searching for, let's say, air and space or, bicycles, or I'm all in the transportation right now, but birds, what have you. And I know, Carol, you have more to add on that, but I did just want to start with that there. And that there is a fix for this. We just need to figure out how to apply it to all the topical stamps. And if it's not a topical stamp keyword search, I would recommend browsing a category and then using the filters to find that keyword that you're particularly looking for.
Right now, we do have a list of keywords that are searchable, but like Anna said, we are going to work on the topical searches because we have had a lot of questions about that and how to search, and some things that she was showing me, it will make it a lot better for topical collectors. But as it is now, we have keywords that we took from the old StampStore, and they're searchable on our site. You should be able to find most of the things that were on the old APS store. You should be able to find them now within HipStamp.
So I'll put this back on both of you. I mean, I've done a bunch of searches for different items in HipStamp, both for postal history and for Cuba, which is what I happen to collect. I've not run into any difficulties, but I do understand other people are. When I hear both of you saying, I have to admit, I'm getting now a little bit confused by this because I hear keywords and then I hear filtering. So can we just walk through both of those a little bit more and help people understand what the difference between the two are and what's recommended in terms of looking, doing these searches?
Yeah, so I think it also comes into play that some people keyword mean, a condition or a type of stamp, and then other people are talking more of like a topic, like Cuba or Canada or, what have you, a country, or, even birds or bicycles, etc. So I think that's maybe where we're getting a little bit jumbled up here. But essentially, if you're looking for a particular country, using that category filter is the absolute best way to find what you're looking for versus just searching Cuba or Canada. We would recommend going in the categories, and I can send that presentation out as well if that would be helpful, Scott, if you guys want to distribute it or make it available anywhere. But when you're searching for a particular country keyword, we would absolutely recommend using the filters. Also, if you're searching for, plate blocks, instead of writing the word plate block, that would be an option to use the filter. Now, right now on the APS StampStore specifically, when it comes to keywords that are around more topical subjects, frankly, such as birds, bicycles, etc., the APS has implemented keywords on some of the titles within the APS StampStore, but not all of them yet. And so that's my understanding from what I've talked to Carol about, is that there are some of those keywords added into some of those listings, but not all of them. And so what Carol and I need to work on is getting those. If you are on, let's say, another seller's store, typically they fill out under the topical category, they fill out the topic as well. Right now in the APS StampStore, it's just, if there's a topical stamp, it's just in the topicals category. It's not also in a specified category. I'm not sure if I'm making sense. And so what we need to work on with APS StampStore is getting their listings up to date in terms of the specific topic within the topical category. And once we do that, searching by keyword for those more topical stamps should be a lot easier and deliver a lot more results. But as far as for the filters, we recommend that for just about any other keyword search that you would use the filters. And if that, I hope that provides a little clarity. And I'm definitely happy to have our team help anybody who's having some struggles with this. We have a whole team dedicated to helping our buyers with search. So.
And that's true whether you're an APS member or not, or whether you're just a HipStamp account holder or an APS member.
Yes.
And in the future, we are going to try to teach a seller how to submit a description that will help them sell better. So we're going to be doing some updating of that too, and try to, have the description so it's better searchable. Because some of the descriptions now make it harder for people to search for items. So that's one thing I'm going to try to work with some of the sellers and to give them some tips after talking with Anna to try to get things to be better searchable in the future.
Sorry, I mean, and touching on that a little bit too, I do want to highlight when Carol's talking about description, she means those details fields. So not that written paragraph where people can write, a bunch more information, which is still really helpful if you're looking at a specific listing. But descriptions are not searchable on HipStamp. It's the details on a particular listing that put it into the right categories, right? And our system does automatically detect some of that information without the seller filling it out, such as year of issue. Like I said before, if you list a US 293, our system knows what year that was issued and can apply the filters accordingly. But specifically around topical stamps, that's something that does currently need to be applied manually to listings. And that's, I think, what Carol was talking about. I just wanted to outline the difference because I know there's an actual description field, and then there's, details that you can fill out, specifically like categorical details when a seller is listing. And I think if she can help some of those sellers do best practices there, that should fix some of these issues.
And we're going to look at our submission forms to see if we need dates on them too, to help with those searchable fields.
Yes, exactly.
So just to maybe try to summarize this a little bit, there are a couple of different in the transition, we've identified some issues that need to be addressed. One is that there are specific keywords we need to add in order to make sure that specifically like topicals are more readily available to find. Second is the idea that we do need to do a little bit of training. I think for those who are more accustomed to StampStore, that the change in platform can be a little, it's substantially different, I think, in the way that things get done. So there's an impetus on us to be able to start working on helping folks do better searches and get to those items. But in the interim, thanks to the HipStamp staff that can be there to help folks who are having trouble with that. And Anna, is there a button on the site or something if you're running into a problem that you can get help?
There is a need help little pop-up that comes up, but to be very transparent with you guys, email support@hipstamp.com. You will probably get a response much quicker. That blurb at the bottom that says need help is going to direct you to help articles first, which that can be really helpful if you want to read and learn and digest it on your own. But if you're looking for a person to respond to you more immediately with some help, around a complex search or maybe training on some of these topics that we're discussing, I would recommend using that email function of just emailing support@hipstamp.com. Oh, yep, I see need help in the bottom right.
Okay, so for those of you who are watching, that's what it will look like. Thank you, Eric, for sharing that with us. Moving on to the next question. There are a lot of questions about Scott Catalog that we got in. People feel like the search by Scott number in the APS site was much easier in StampStore than it is in HipStamp. Carol, I don't know what's your experience in terms of talking to folks and getting questions from individual users on our side.
I haven't had that many comments about that. I've had a few, but like when Anna showed, if you use the main search bar in HipStamp and you put in the country that you want and the catalog number, it seems to work that way. And then on the right-hand side, when you're in that country, you can search by country, this catalog number, and it will put them all in numerical order. Once you find, like if you're doing a range, like say US 240 to 265, when it first calls them up, they'll just bring up those ones. But if on the right hand side, if you do sort by, it will sort them in numerical order from the lowest one first over here on this sort by country/catalog number. I've found myself, if I just put the country and whatever catalog number up here, I seem to get good results that way. Because I've had people call in and they couldn't find the catalog number they were looking for. And once I helped them out this way, they seem to be able to find them.
Also, to add on to that, the reason you don't have to write Scott when you're searching for a particular catalog number is because HipStamp's search engine is based on the Scott catalog. So if you search just Canada and then do the number sign 20, or 50, that ideally would bring up, it would bring up Canada number 20 listings. That said, I understand some of our members are searching or wanting to use Stanley Gibbons catalog or Michelle or, different catalog logs other than Scott. To do this, you just have to add SG in front of the catalog number. So, and of course, it's going to be a different stamp because it's a different catalog when we search this. But I can show you guys some more examples of this later. But yeah, so there we go. SG55. So that'll bring up a seller who is listing in the Stanley Gibbons catalog and pulling up if you're using a different one to, source your stamps and what you're looking for. And you can also search for a range of catalog numbers, which is really helpful if you're looking for a particular set of items.
Okay. Moving on to the next question this is a seller question. So the question is, can we make it easier to search by seller ID? Carol, can you explain for folks what that is? And then second, how exactly you can find an item under a certain seller?
The seller ID is a number that is assigned to every APS seller. And it's pretty easy to search by. Up in the main, if you go to the APS store and go to the main search bar and put in seller ID, which there's 6 numbers each, and then you'll see everything that that seller has available for sale on our store. I know I've had people call in and or email in, and they want to know they got something, they like the way the person presented the items, and they want to search for their stuff. So we just give out the seller ID, and I know a lot of our sellers advertise in different places about their items on the store, so they'll advertise by their APS seller ID.
So I've got an individual who's asked a question persistently, and so I'm going to go ahead and ask it. The comment is he's generally satisfied with having the StampStore moved to HipStamp. The biggest disappointment is that all of his stamps were transferred to HipStamp. None of the stamps were initially listed as never hinged. I'm sure many buyers just gloss over the listing and move on to other listings that show never hinged. Since 95% of my stamps are never hinged, I'm not happy about this. Granted, once someone clicks on the submission, then it shows that the stamp or set is never hinged. Is there any way, shape, or form that you can show never hinged on the initial listing instead of having to wait and see that on the second click of the listing?
Am I correct in understanding they're referring to the title, that NH is not in the title of the stamp?
That's correct.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, so I suppose we could have, if it depends on the APS processing, but if people wanted to add that in the title, they could. That said, most of our buyers are using the condition filter, especially when they're looking for mint items. And that picks up your never hinged stamps, whether it's in the listing title or just on the details, because those filters are based on what the details of the stamp are. So if you, for instance, are searching within the HipStamp store for your items and then by seller ID, like Carol just talked about, and then you use the condition mint NH, that should pull up your listings. And if it's not, that's something that our team can look into. But as long as that's filled out on the details, it's definitely being applied on the filters, which is what the majority of our buyers are using when they're trying to find mint NH things. And
Okay.
also that touching on that, I think we had talked about marketing emails previously, and some people had seen their items there. I think we do a mint stamps and APS email every so often. I approve them, so I'm sure we've done one recently that I looked at. And we actually use that filter to apply and get the searches and the featured stamps for APS StampStore's marketing emails. So even if it's not in that title, as long as it's in the details, it should be showing up on anybody who's searching for those stamps.
Okay, so one of the questions that was posed is that catalog value shows up for normal HipStamp, for traditional HipStamp posts, but they don't show up for the APS. Is that correct?
So are they I think they're saying that it shows up in the title sometimes, the
Yes.
catalog value.
Is that a seller decision, or is that something that is just unique to our site?
It's my understanding that the APS is able to alter listing information at any time. That said, CVs are not, I wouldn't say they're in a frequent number of our listings, and if they are, it's because that particular seller on the HipStamp site intentionally put them in each title of each listing that they uploaded originally. Generally, we recommend just country and catalog number. I think that terms for a much cleaner search, but I think that would be up to APS policies on the listing title. I might, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, we got several questions about catalog value. I mean, I just don't know if that's realistic. When I've gone to a show, for instance, I've purchased stamps from dealers where the catalog value listed was from 2010 or 2008 or what have you. And that doesn't necessarily reflect what the actual price should be today. I kind of know what I want to pay, but I'm not sure that every buyer is in that same position. And so and it's hard because you want to keep them updated. So if you've got an item that's been on the website for a while, that creates an issue.
Logistically, I could see that being difficult to manage over time with as many listings as we've got going on.
For sure. Carol, we got a few questions about presentation of the stamps on the StampStore site. A lot were around the imaging itself, and I wanted you to address that. I know that we have varying degrees of quality of some of the photos. Can you walk through what that is?
Okay, some of the quality is because they're images from an older system. We do have some people that will send in items that didn't sell previously, and that's something we call a repost, where we will clone the image that was on our site previously and then assign it a new number, and it will be uploaded with the same description and everything. So that's one reason for the quality. And sometimes it is the way the seller mounts the items, because we always try to tell sellers to make sure they use clear mounts. We have had some people send them in glassines, which they do not make for a good image. We always try to point out about clear mounts, good placement on the submission sheet, and good descriptions, because that will help for better sales. But that's the reason some of the images don't look as good or as good quality because of the way they were mounted, how they were mounted, or if it's, like I said, a repost, an older image.
So I guess the one of the responsibilities we have maybe is to working with some sellers, particularly some of the newer ones, to make sure that their presentation of the stamps is a way that comes across very well when it's scanned and uploaded into the site.
Yes, and if anybody has any questions about any item they see in our store, they can contact us. If you want a scan of the back, we will send a scan of the back. We'll pull the item. So if you have any questions, just feel free to send us a message through HipStamp, or you can phone us or send an email, and we'll look at any item you want and what you want to know about it.
Okay.
On the HipStamp functionality side too, I saw Eric was just showing how you can zoom in a little bit over specific stamp images. I wanted to add that if you use the scroll function right here on your mouse while you are hovering over an image, it'll actually zoom in even more. And so if you want to examine a pinhole or specific perforations, that kind of thing, that can be a really useful tool to see more enhanced versions of what you're seeing on the screen. And so I just wanted to note on that as well, if you're wanting to see a better close-up.
So I've got a couple of questions about HipStamp policies, Anna, that maybe you can help us out with. I got an interesting question about illegal stamps. What is HipStamp's policy on posting stamps? Look, I'll start with this. I'm a Cuba collector, but there's a prohibition on selling certain Cuban stamps in the United States after 1963. And so, though I don't collect that era, it still matters to me. Sometimes it's very hard to go and find Cuba stamps because of that. So how does HipStamp handle, selling from certain countries if they've been blacklisted by the United States for a number of reasons?
We do uphold all laws in terms of that. So we are going to have to follow all regulations and restrictions of that nature. And beyond that, actually, PayPal won't let you check out for most. We've actually had that issue. I worked in support for a number of years before my current role, and we had issues with people trying to check out actually specifically for Cuba stamps, and they'd get blocked by PayPal just because it's not legal to trade on. So unfortunately, I do regret to share that we would not be able to help out with those sorts of items just because we've got to follow the law. That said, if anybody's ever seen illegal or forged stamps, things that are dishonest, sellers that you feel are dishonest, please report them to our team. We have a trust and safety team who does review them on a regular basis as it is. However, of course, if you're noticing something that we have not yet caught, that would be really helpful information for us to have. And even beyond manual review, we have a number of trust and safety automations to catch dishonest behavior or things like that from sellers, and checks and balances in places that I can't go into detail on because then people could work around them. But we have a number of policies and automations to catch any kind of bad behavior on our platform.
So this is sort of a crossover question. Is there a way that I can reserve or buy an item but not pay for it? This individual would like to put a number of items in the cart, maybe before making the purchase decision, probably from StampStore, so that they can get more bang for their buck when it comes to the shipping. Can you talk through that a little bit?
Yeah, so when items are added to your cart, that does not reserve them. They are still live on the platform. That said, there is a feature that I could discuss with you, Scott and Carol. It's called the Pay Later feature. And this is something that each seller has to individually enable for their store. So you will not see it on every single listing on HipStamp. But if there is a seller who has this feature enabled, as a buyer, you can request to be approved for Pay Later. So you have to click on the actual button on the listing, request to be approved, and that seller can then, if you might want to share your APS number or something like that, can request to be approved to Pay Later. And this would allow you to add multiple items to your cart and check out without paying. That would create an invoice. And then let's say you do that again a day or two later, like you said, you want to browse over a few days. Then those invoices would be automatically combined. So we automatically combine any invoices, create any unpaid invoices within 5 days of them occurring. That said, I would imagine with the APS StampStore, because it's resell, I'm not sure the Pay Later feature would be something that would make sense because there's no time limits on it. So you could potentially have a stamp taken off the APS StampStore, and let's say the buyer doesn't end up paying, that seller loses out on that item being on the market until that order is canceled and the item is relisted. So specifically when it comes to APS StampStore, I don't think this feature makes a whole lot of sense, but I would leave that up to you guys ultimately to decide that there.
Sounds like a fun topic to explore. I look forward to doing that with you.
Yeah.
One last question on the HipStamp platform. Can I add a note to the seller during checkout? I know I can ask a question on individual items, but sometimes I want to say thanks or ask a question during the checkout, but can't find a way to do it.
Yeah, so yes and no, it's slightly different. So once you've checked out, this is directly after, anytime you check out on our platform, because I know there's another question about reviewing past purchases. Anytime you check out on our platform, an invoice is created for you to have on your records. This is under, when you're in your HipStamp account, you go to members area, buying, and under the buying section, there is a list of all of your invoices. Next to each invoice is a contact seller button. So let's say you check out from the APS StampStore and you buy a number of items. Just go to your members area buying section of your account, click contact seller, and you should be able to ask that seller anything about maybe the shipping, how long it's going to take, or you could send them a thank you note as well. I'm also aware that they just updated, and this would be helpful for in terms of kind of communication after purchase. This week, there was a feature request to put the date shipped on an invoice, and our system has executed that update this week. Our team has done that. So if you have a question about when an item was shipped, that now should be date stamped on your invoices in that section as well.
Okay. So, Carol, I'm coming back to pick up on a couple of questions that I do think are useful. One is, there's a question about listings on our site that are perhaps in error. They've either been misdescribed or there's an error in the description itself. What is the best recommendation we can make to an individual who spots that issue in terms of helping us address it?
If somebody spots any of those errors, they can send us a message through HipStamp, or if they send me an email directly, I will go in and look at the item, pull the item. If I need to have somebody look at it, a philatelist that's in the building, I will have them look at it. And I will contact the seller if it's a real big price difference or something, and we'll remove it from the site. Or if it's just like a different catalog number and say the price is pretty much even, we will just update the listing and keep it up on the site.
Okay. I do want to go back and clarify a question I asked early on about certification and getting a refund. The individual that asked the question stated that he was getting a certificate from a non-APS source, that is, he was using another expertising firm, and that the APS didn't refund the certification cost in that case. Can you help me with that one?
Yes, if you use an outside expertising firm, it's the buyer's responsibility to pay for the certification. We will refund the stamp value, but we won't refund the certification price unless you use Apex.
Here's a question. I collect both mint hinged and mint never hinged. Is there a way to look at both on HipStamp instead of doing it separately?
I believe Mint Hinged falls under the unused filter when you are using our platform. So at this time, you can only select Mint or unused. You cannot select both. However, I can teach you a trick to editing the URL where you can see both at the same time. It is a little bit finicky. So unfortunately, at this time, I'd probably recommend just viewing them both individually. But this is some great feedback that I can take back to our team. We've been really working on feature requests from our members. So I'll definitely flag this with our tech team and see if there's something they could do to make this easier for you to do in the future.
How long on average does it take to receive a stamp if it's going to be certified?
The normal process usually takes anywhere from 60 to 90 days to get the full results back, because they're usually certified by more than one expert.
So I have another seller question. What happens if the stamp is certified genuine in all respects if the buyer decides to return it within the 30-day grace period?
If the buyer decides to return it, we will repost the item with the buyer will pay for the certification fee. So when we get it back, we will repost it and put it back up on the site.
Going back and talking about the seller discount question, a seller basically said, offered this up, and I thought it was interesting. I'm not sure if this applies or not, but it was a note that sellers can go into their listings and do a bulk discount. For instance, if they wanted to do 20%, and those prices do update on the HipStamp site. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you're correct. They do it within their My APS account, and they will update on the HipStamp account.
So, for instance, if somebody wanted to do a discount over a weekend and make a big deal about it, they could. I guess the question then comes, so how do you promote that so that that individual gets some notoriety for that?
I do want to add to that, Scott, that we have an automation when a buyer has viewed your item and the price drops, they get an email about it unless they've unsubscribed. So that is one feature I forgot to mention earlier. So if, let's say, you do what you're proposing where they log in, they update their prices to be lower, those buyers should get a notification via email if they viewed your item before. And then also, like I think Carol mentioned earlier, I think there's a filter, and I should probably double check on this, but there's a way to see ones that recently had a price drop as well. And so I can look into that though to be certain and get back to you guys or whoever asked this question if I can send you an email.
Okay. There is a note, Carol, and I think we should talk about this a little bit, that if someone sees an item they like on the site, but for instance, they're concerned about the price for one reason or another. I know there are some stamp collectors out there, not many of them, who are very who are a little more cost conscious than the rest of us, and like a good deal more than you can imagine. So if you find a stamp that you like, is there a way of getting a different, of making a counter offer and saying, I'd like to pay this instead?
Yes, they can email me or send me a message through HipStamp. I will contact the buyer with their offer and see if it's accepted. I've done it in the past, mostly for higher value stamps. And sometimes the seller will come back with a counter offer. But we've had good results with the higher value stamps. You just have to let me know the item and I will contact the buyer with your offer and then get back to you.
Okay. So we got a lot of questions about sales and valuation, particularly from individuals who have stamp collections over the years. They've accumulated a large collection and they want to know if there's a recommended way to dispose of the stamps. Carol, as our sales director, I imagine you probably get this call quite often. And what's the advice you usually give?
I usually tell them to go to our website and look for a dealer that's an APS member in their area and contact them. I mean, and the people that just inherit stamp collections and they don't know what they have, what I tell them is to contact maybe a local club from our community tab just to see if they have anything of value. But because instead of going to a dealer and a lot of the local clubs will help people out, but if they're already an established collector, I usually have them look for a dealer on our community tab that's an APS member to see if they can get help that way or get an appraisal to sell.
So I've gotten a lot of questions. If someone's got something, you recommend maybe reaching out to someone who's an expert, maybe a local club. If they're starting to put together items to sell, maybe either through internet sales or through circuit sales, what's the advice in terms of being able to conclude what the value should be and how they should present that information to prospective buyers in both formats?
In both formats, I encourage them to get a Scott catalog. If they don't know anything about stamps, that's why I do the club route. Usually they can find a club, but I encourage them to get a Scott catalog and catalog all their items, and then decide how they want to submit them, either through StampStore or through circuit books. And I explain each of the differences, that if you're looking for a quicker return, the internet's the way to go. But if you have some lower priced items, put them in circuit books, or even high price, because we take both. Usually I'll send out a seller packet for each department with some information and some free material to get started. And if they have any questions, I tell them to feel free to contact me.
Okay. Anna, I'm posting your email address for everyone to see.
Happy to help. And if I'm not able to, I can direct you guys to the best member of our team that can assist.
So Carol, I did get a circuit sales related question, since you're here and also manage that program as well. I want to make sure that we address it, as it's from an individual who wants to know what we're doing about the shipping costs for circuit sales. Can you talk through that a little bit?
Yes, now we use the small flat rate or the flat rate priority bags, which they're 1020, that includes the tracking. We have been looking for different options, but we need to keep the books secure, and we need to be able to track them because of the value in the books. But all the time we try to evaluate for something cheaper, and because of the weight of some of them, of the books, that's why we decided to use the flat rate, because if you have to go weigh them, they're probably going to cost more than 1020. So that's why we've been sticking for now with the flat rate priority bags and the flat rate small boxes.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered a lot of territory tonight. For those who are watching, if you have a question submitted and we did not address it necessarily, then we can do that. I know a couple of folks had a number of questions and subsequently asked if they could reach out. Carol, could you share your email address with the attendees so they can, if they need to reach out to you directly, they can? You're going to put that in the chat there. And before we go, Anna, Carol, is there anything that we should be looking out for in the weeks ahead from either HipStamp or from StampStore that we should be getting everyone excited for?
Well, this is a bit far in advance, but I'm really excited for gas this year.
And Anna and I are gonna do something together. She's gonna talk about HipStamp, and I'm probably gonna talk about how to submit your items, like how to mount them, how to fill out the submission sheet, and how to do your description, because that always promotes better sales for people, quicker and better sales for people. But we're going to do something. It's tentatively set for Saturday at 2:00 at gas.
So for those of you who are planning to attend the Great American Stamp Show, make sure you go to our website at stamps.org to make sure that you get the latest updated information on events that are going on during the show. I can tell you that HipStamp will be located near us on the show floor. So not only will we be able to stop by and say hello to Carol and all the APS staff, but you can swing around and say hello to all the kids from HipStamp as well. And if you have questions, and I'm sure folks still do, they're happy to answer them, not just then, but I've included the email address for both Anna and Carol in the chat box. So please feel free to reach out to them if you've got more specific questions. Over the weeks ahead, one of the things that I've committed to for the organization is that we're going to work on developing more educational videos on how to better use StampStore, and both from a seller's perspective and from a buyer's perspective, making sure that we give you as much information as possible so that you can use it effectively as a collector and make sure that you're building on your collection. With that said, we're currently in the works for planning another Ask Me Anything in May. May is Member Appreciation Month for the American Philatelic Society. And so we will be doing an Ask Me Anything, including all of our directors, so that if you have questions across the board in terms of programs that we offer here at the APS, you'll be able to. Just a reminder that we are recording this session. We will be posting it online at our YouTube page. If you have additional questions, please reach out to Anna and Carol. But with that, I want to thank the APS members who help us make these programs available, and for all that you do for the American Philatelic Society. And remember, if you're not a member of the APS today, why not? Please join us. You can go to our website at stamps.org and join us there. Thank you all very much. I look forward to seeing you again soon.